Welcome to the Film Geezers podcast. Hello and welcome to the Film Geezers podcast. I'm Robbo and I'm joined as always by my beautiful assistant, Cheeto.
Hello.
This is hopefully the last part 3 of our Batman special, which was going to be 2 parts, but kind of spilled over into 3.
Yeah. We're bad at planning, you see.
Well, we just like talking. First part, we covered the Burton Schumacher films of 89 to 97. The last episode, we covered the Dark Knight trilogy and Batman v Superman. And this episode, I thought it'd be quite interesting to cover some of the well-known failed Batman projects, of which there's been quite a few. Warner Brothers are not unknown for their failed projects. I mean, we covered in, I think it's podcast episode 11.
It was the failed movies.
Yeah, it was the best films never made, and
the
development hell.
Yeah. And there were quite a lot of them were Warner Brothers movies, weren't they?
Particularly Superman was one topic. I don't know if we just wanted to quickly discuss Justice League. Yeah, well, it's not quite a Batman.
It's still, I think he's still got a big enough part. Yeah. He can include it, but
because we thought we'd finish it at Batman v Superman because he's got a main role in it. But I guess,
and it's his first introduction in the DCU.
Batman is kind of the titular head of the Justice League. We ought to mention it now. I only watched the Zack Snyder cut, so I can't comment on Joss Whedon's version. I think the reason why we've chosen to specifically speak about the theatrical cut is because it just goes to show how Warner Brothers treat their properties. Well, there's been a lot in the news recently about sort of, there's kind of a little bit of bitterness between Whedon and some of the cast members, and particularly with Ben Affleck saying that it was possibly his worst experience ever making a film. That's why he didn't want to go on to do the Batman. I liked the Snyder cut. I thought it was even at 4 hours, didn't seem 4 hours.
No.
I thought it was a really good introduction to all of the Justice League characters.
I mean, like we always say, we would have preferred if each character would have done like in the MCU where they had their own movie, but basically the first hour and a half, 2 hours is just setting up the characters, or setting up the story, and then after that, once you get to know the characters, their backstory, then you can really push on with the story, doesn't it? I think it had to be 4 hours, but I mean, I'll just get straight into the theatrical cut. I mean, there was so much that went wrong with this. I mean, it's the first Justice League movie we've seen, and it just got treated poorly, in my opinion. Zack Snyder, obviously, he's up to that point, he'd done all the films in the DCU. He'd done Superman, Batman v Superman, obviously the Man of Steel, and he filmed about, I want to say half of this movie, and he has a very particular style, a lot darker, a lot grittier. Fit for DC, really, isn't it? Perfect for DC, in my opinion. And unfortunately, is about halfway through, his daughter tragically took her own life, so he had to leave the project.
Understandably, he left. Yeah, and like a lot of directors coming into a project, they don't like to pick up where someone's left off. And so I think Whedon went and reshot the whole thing.
That's the thing. Whedon has been known for like Buffy and the Vampire Slayer, the Avengers movies, the first 2. I think he's done a couple of other MCU movies, and his just style was just totally different to Zack Snyder's, and it was never going to work in the first place. Maybe if they got in a similar director to Zack Snyder, maybe could have steered the boat a bit, but still, it was almost like a poison chalice. But bringing in someone who's I think they just panicked and they were like, okay, he's done a like a
Marvel,
but he's done like, at the time, the Avengers were one of the most important movies because it was the first time you'd seen all the characters together, and it was, in this case, it was DC's, and he filmed the rest of the movie, added in parts about there's just stupid things like Warner Brothers. Zack Snyder originally wanted it to be 4 hours, and they were like, no, we're not going to do it 4 hours. We want it under 2 hours, and they made him, and they made Joss Whedon cut the movie to 1 minute, 1 hour 59 minutes and 59 seconds, just stupid stuff like that. And obviously the infamous, the Superman's face. Obviously, once they filmed most of the movie, Henry Cavill. Well, they filmed the movie up to this point, and Henry Cavill was off doing Mission Impossible, and he had this nice chevron moustache, and contractually he was not. Joss Whedon had to bring him back for reshoots. He was not allowed to contractually shave it off, so they spent the most money ever on CGI for one thing. It was about 80 million, I think, or something like that, which is just ridiculous to remove this moustache, and it just looks horrible. I mean, everyone knows it's so infamous, and just stupid stuff like that. It was like with Ben Affleck, wasn't he? He'd put on a little bit of weight in between. Well, you could tell when he was back for the reshoots, because he was really in shape for the actual shooting, and then with reshoots he was nice and tanned. He looked a bit like he didn't want to be there. He was a bit chunkier, and it was just, like I said, it was just a poison chalice for Joss Whedon. And it's only now in the last, not that long ago, was it, that Joss Whedon, loads of actors and actresses have come out and said how horrible he used to work with, isn't it?
It was like, I know
there's always been rumours in there about that, but
toxic set,
especially on Justice League. And
well, I think Gal Gadot came out in the news and in the press and said that she didn't like the way that he treated her.
No.
Obviously Ray Fisher as well. In Snyder's cut, Cyborg has a much larger role in it, and Whedon cut a lot of that, claiming that Fisher wasn't a very good actor.
Cyborg, I don't think he'd done bad, and I think Cyborg is actually.
Well, it seems to be actually in the Snyder cut. He's one of the most important characters.
Yeah, he is. He's up there definitely. Yeah. And but this is the thing. After it came out, obviously it made about 800 million, which may seem loads, but for Justice League, think about Avengers at this point was the year after their movies for 2 years in a row would hit the 2 billion mark, and you think on
a budget of 300 million, it made 600, so it made just over its twice its.
And Warner Brothers, they want a fat paycheck, don't they? And,
they've cancelled projects for less than that, haven't they? So,
but the fans were like, no, this is. They heard about all the backroom shit that went on, and they were like, this. And the stars like Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck, they all came out, and they because Warner Brothers sort of distanced themselves from Zack Snyder. He'd done nothing wrong. He literally, what anyone would do. He went back home just to be with his family, and they were kind of not bad mouthing him, but kind of cutting him off. And Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck, that's many reasons why, especially Henry Cavill, because he loves playing Superman, and they don't want him to play him anymore because he's come out and talked about it.
Vocal people,
and he's on Zack Snyder's side, but the fans were like, no, this is. There was always this talk of this Snyder cut, always between the fans and stuff. And then, first off, I never thought personally that we'd get the film this early after, it's about 4 years after. I thought it'd take years and years and years, but the fans kept on just hammering Warner Brothers, release a Snyder cut.
The fact they gave him, was it about 80 million to finish the film?
Well, that's the thing. We were like, release a Snyder cut, the Snyder cut, and Warner Bros. Was like, okay. They gave him around 70 to 100 million just to finish the film off, and you get the Snyder cut, Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is the original was so convoluted. It had some of the worst CGI, as in terms of even the fight scenes. In the large fight at the end where they go to that power plant, it's really dark. The actual not the tone is, of course the tone's dark, but I mean the actual, even the colours are dark. Well, Joss Whedon wanted everything to look, so it has like this reddish filter on it, and it just looks dumb. I think Zack Snyder's writing is much better in his cut than it is on Joss Whedon's, and obviously where there's more time to introduce the characters, introduce their backstories, they have so much more layers, and you're invested in them, and you're invested in the story much more. So yeah, much bigger improvement. And I said I would have preferred if Warner Bros. would give Zack Snyder the chair to direct their own movies, like Cyborg's own movie or whatnot. But I mean, it's the best of what we got, and like I said, I was just surprised Warner Brothers even let him finish the film, to be fair.
So.
But yeah, no, it's much better, and if you haven't seen it, then you've got to watch it, because it felt like something big when you're watching it. Yeah. It felt like this was an event, you know.
Well, it's an epic. It needs to be an epic.
That's how we described it. It's an epic. It is. Seems it. You know, there's all this like lore, but then there's these huge battles. Yeah, 100%. But it's brilliant. It's a brilliant film, and if you haven't seen it, then you know.
Yeah, definitely recommend it. Snyder good, we did bad. That was
we've got a chimp on our podcast.
Right, so let's actually start our podcast and where we're going to go. So these are some of the failed Batman projects that have been proposed over the years. Now, this is kind of a bit out of left field. So a year before the first full-length theatrical film, which was actually 1966's Batman the movie, which starred Adam West, long-time Godzilla movie writer Shinichi Sekizawa proposed the idea, get this, Batman versus Godzilla.
Jesus Christ.
A film that would have pitted Batman and Robin in a battle against the king of the monsters. So they'd basically be using bat technology to fight Godzilla. So there's still a lot that's unknown about the project, including whether Sekizawa ever actually pitched this idea to DC, and whether it was abandoned because of the Batman TV show and movie starring West. But interestingly, Godzilla and Batman are both Warner properties.
Oh yeah.
It could happen. We can do it.
Zack Snyder.
No, we can do it. You know, we've been wanting to write that screenplay, but there it is. But actually could work. It'd be quite interesting to see.
This is the thing. I think back in the 60s, it would just, I don't know, it's just, because that would have been Batman's first full-length feature film, and I just think if you start off with Batman v Godzilla, then people are just going to see his characters being like totally different tone and
nowhere to go with it. So
that's maybe something you build up to, isn't it? You know, but I don't know how that works. Even nowadays, like back then, Batman was a bit.
But like nowadays, you could just have it as a separate storyline, because that's all they do. They go, oh yeah, it's a different universe, and you know, different.
It would just be ridiculous, wouldn't it? Like Batman's this dark, troubled character, and he's fighting fucking Godzilla. You know. I mean, would I want to see it? Yes, but I don't know if it'll work or not. It's dumb.
So, obviously, after 1989's Batman and its sequel, Batman Returns, Tim Burton had initially planned on directing a third film starring Michael Keaton, and the movie brought back Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, but also Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent, and he would then transform into Two-Face and amazingly join forces with the Riddler, played by Mickey DeLance, better known as the drummer from the Monkees. Now, I do know that he was a child actor. I think he did some like Disney stuff, so he's not a completely left sort of field choice. But it would have been a bit weird seeing that, you know. In addition, Rennie Russo was set to play Dr. Chase Meridian, which was a part that was later played by Nicole Kidman, and Marlon Wayans was attached to portray Robin. Now, he'd actually been cast in Batman Returns, and was cut from it for some reason. However, when Batman Returns saw a significant drop off at the box office from its predecessors, and it was criticised for its kind of dark and macabre tone, Warner Brothers abandoned it and pushed him up pushed Tim Burton up to producer and brought in Joel Schumacher for the more family-friendly Batman Forever. And that's one of the reasons Keaton left as well, because he didn't like the way that the character was being. It was getting more to its sort of campy 60s almost roots in a way. Rene Russo was considered too old for Val Kilmer, so that's why she was replaced with Nicole Kidman.
And their first choice for Robin was for Leonardo DiCaprio was their first choice, but child labour laws meant that he could only shoot about a couple of hours a day.
Yeah, you can't shoot at night, and other restrictions as well. And then obviously for some reason, don't know why, Billy D. Williams was replaced with Tommy Lee Jones.
I think the reason why he was replaced is because they wanted him in Batman Returns.
Yeah,
and he turned it down, so that's why they had to create the Max Schreck character.
Oh, okay.
And
that's Christopher Walken. If you ever see that, I never thought I'd ever see Christopher Walken saying "boom down"
in a Batman movie. But and I think Warner Brothers were a bit bitter about it, so they
do get a little bit like that, don't they? Because obviously they offered the Riddler to Robin Williams as well, who turned it down because he didn't like the way he was treated.
He's like a pawn, basically.
He was, I think, from 1980, Warner Brothers had always wanted Jack Nicholson to play the Joker, and he'd never fully committed to it. So when they came to do the 89 film, they all but, I think, cast Robin Williams in the role as really just to get Jack Nicholson to sign on. And obviously Robin Williams was a little bit bitter about that, as you would be. Yeah. So when he was offered the chance to play the Riddler, he turned it down, saying he'd never worked for Warner Brothers. Be interested to know if he actually did make anyone. I'll have to research that and see if he ever did. But that was abandoned in favour of Joel Schumacher, who brought us Batman Forever.
We'll do our rankings later.
And obviously Batman and Robin, which was resoundingly critically and box office. What am I trying to say? Critically panned and didn't do anything really at the box office, or not to Warner Brothers' liking anyway. And essentially, like Clooney said, killed the franchise really. Yeah. Before that, though, following the success of Batman Forever, which actually outgrossed Batman Returns, Schumacher was rehired to direct its sequel, Batman and Robin. Pleased with the way that it was, apparently Warner Brothers were pleased with the way Batman and Robin was shaping up. So he was actually approached about making another Batman movie. This would have been Batman 5. And had a guy called Mark Protosevich to write the script.
That's odd, because Mark Protosevich has written so many scripts that have
never been produced.
It's just odd. It's one of those things.
So, unlike his first two outings with the Cape Crusaders, Schumacher wanted his Batman 5, which was also going to be known as Batman Unchained. He wanted it to be more darker tone of Burton's films. It was equally psychological, and it would see the Scarecrow, a role Schumacher courted both Nicolas Cage and Coolio to play, team up with Harley Quinn in an attempt to psychologically torture Batman. So some of these themes were actually kind of reused in the Batman Begins, were they, with the Scarecrow and not obviously Harley Quinn, and they were going to reimagine Harley Quinn as the Joker's vengeful daughter. And obviously in the end the project was cancelled after Batman and Robin bombed, both critically and commercially, in 1997. So I don't know, I mean it's difficult, isn't it, to blame a director. It's, you kind of, you don't know how much it is the director or the studio.
Well, that's the thing. I think the studio sometimes has to, when they hire a director, they got to tell you where the boundaries are. Obviously, Tim Burton's was too dark.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like they let Joel Schumacher do what they want, and sometimes that's good, but sometimes you got to have those boundaries.
Well, no, because Batman and Robin, he was told that it needed to, because I think Batman Forever was a PG-13, and they wanted to get the lower rating, so it would attract more kids, so more merchandising. So that basically Batman and Robin was to sell toys essentially, and it was one long advert for toy advert, which it's difficult when you're working in sort of strict parameters like that to produce something that you want to produce and then stick within the studio's remit. Really,
I just wish Warner Brothers didn't buy DC. I wish it was another film company.
Yeah. But yeah, so obviously we were kind of spared from another Schumacher film, because obviously he I think he made The Client and
made The Client. He made
so he's worked.
What was that? The film with Samuel Jackson when he's the dad and his kids get Time to Kill. Made
So he's worked with some really dark subject matter and made some really good films. Maybe it's just Warner Brothers screwed him over it. So
like I say, he's a really good director, but it's not Warner Brothers.
I mean, it's not just Warner Brothers. I mean, there's loads of production companies, studios that probably have stacks and stacks of unmade scripts. Like
I mean, Warner Brothers treat their properties like that,
Yeah. So apparently there was going to be an idea for a Batman and Robin spin-off. They were going to a spin-off of Catwoman, so they're actually going to give Michelle Pfeiffer her own Catwoman film. But I think at the time she didn't want to return because she was either pregnant or she had young kids and didn't want to go through that again. And so it kind of stayed in limbo until 2004. Catwoman came out with Halle Berry in it, and that again is another film that's been sort of critically panned, isn't it? And so that probably would have killed any chance of any more sort of Catwoman films, I would have thought. Apparently Chris O'Donnell said that they were going to do a spin-off of Robin as a separate character back in the day, and basically Batman and Robin killed that as well. The Dick Grayson character or version of Robin hasn't been depicted in live action movies since then, though he did receive a shout out during 2012's The Dark Knight Rises when it's revealed the character Josh Blake, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, is legally named Robin Blake. And in 2016's Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, it also nodded to the death of Robin in the DC EU prior to the film's events. So basically they killed off Robin in the DC universe. So I mean, I don't know, it's kind of odd because at the end of Dark Knight Rises it almost felt like the sort of he'd been handed he'd been given the Batcave, hadn't he?
Yeah.
And it's almost like
it would have been cool to see, like, because I actually thought Joseph Gordon-Levitt was good. This thing, he is Robin, but he's not Robin at the same time. It's like because he's a police officer, and then he gets promoted to be a detective, but he's totally different to Dick Grayson, isn't he? Yeah. I don't know, obviously that comes with the darker tone of the film.
Obviously, in Batman and Robin, Dick Grayson, Chris O'Donnell, he's originally a circus performer, trapeze artist, and his family are killed by the
it's by Harvey Dent and his henchmen,
and he kind of blames Batman for it, but then he essentially becomes a ward of basically Bruce Wayne adopts him really to stop him going into care, and then he's going to leave, but he decides to stay when he finds out Bruce Wayne's Batman, and so he kind of forces himself onto Bruce as being Robin. So it's a very different character to the Robin Blake character. But it almost said, like I say, it almost felt like at the end of Dark Knight Rises that was kind of opening up for a spin-off. Of Robin.
This is the thing. If it was, I reckon people would have watched a Robin spin-off because we never had it before. We've never had a film dedicated to him. Not many people. Loads of people know Batman's backstory and whatnot. Nobody knows Robin's really. So
because obviously in the Dark Knight trilogy, he met Batman as a young kid, didn't he?
Yeah.
And that's kind of why he wanted to join the police force and everything. So yeah, I mean, it would have been interesting, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know. So the next one is a film called Batman Dark Knight. So not long before they decided to reboot the Batman's franchise in the 2000s, Warner Brothers was approached about making a film titled Batman Dark Knight based on a script by Lee Shapiro and Stephen Wise. And that would have been based in part on Frank Miller's classic comic book story, The Dark Knight Returns. Dark Knight, like Batman Unchained, featured Jonathan Crane, also known as the Scarecrow, as a villain, and saw Dr. Kirk Langstrom transform into his infamous alter ego, Man-Bat. As with Schumacher's proposed Batman 5, Shapiro and Wise's plan was to take the Caped Crusader back to his darker roots and away from the campier inclinations of the prior two installments. In the end, Warner Brothers passed on the project and turned its attention to making a film about a younger Bruce Wayne instead. So I don't know, it seems like a lot of these sort of proposed films, I mean, even the name itself, The Dark Knight Returns, because was Dark Knight based on Frank Miller's comic books?
Dark Knight, what? Christopher Nolan? Yeah, it was based on Dark Knight Returns, Year One, and The Long Halloween. Yeah. Most Batman movies are, to be fair. Yeah. But that's interesting.
So it seems that the character of Scarecrow, which probably isn't most well-known character, gets. I mean, he's the only one that appears in all of the three Nolan films, doesn't he?
And Nolan made a choice to have Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul as his villains, wasn't it? Because they're not very well known.
Because I think Batman Unchained, or the next Batman 5 Schumacher's film, would have featured Jonathan Crane in it.
Yeah.
Because it introduced a character right at the end that he's the director of Arkham Asylum. And I think he was Jonathan Crane's psychiatrist.
Right, yeah.
So I think the idea was that they would have featured the Scarecrow in the original films had they continued.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Man-Bat. I've kind of heard of Man-Bat. but
he's not the most well known.
No, don't know a lot about him. So at one point Warner Brothers had both a live action adaptation of the Batman Beyond animated series and a movie based on Miller's comic book Batman Year One in the works, but it was the latter that really gained traction in the early 2000s. The studio hired Darren Aronofsky to helm the film, which would have dramatically altered Batman's classic origin story by having Bruce Wayne lose his fortune after his parents are killed and become a proper street-level vigilante. Aronofsky has compared his vision of the Caped Crusader to Taxi Driver's Travis Bickle and claimed the movie at large would have resembled 70s thrills like Death Wish in terms of its grim tone and violence. Warner Bros., as you imagine, was always wary of the project, but it may have been Aronofsky's push to cast Joaquin Phoenix as Bruce Wayne when the studio had its eye on Freddie Prinze Jr. that acted as a fan on Nail and Coffee.
Warner Brothers.
But that's an interesting. I mean, obviously, what they did is they had the animated, which was its huge success, wasn't it?
Yeah. Right. So Darren Aronofsky, they've done the right thing in getting in a competent. He's brilliant. It's probably done just after Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah.
He's brilliant at character studies. He's brilliant at actual stories, and it sounds really good, doesn't it? It sounds as proposed thing.
I mean, you look at like The Wrestler, for example. I mean, that is quite a dark film in a lot of ways. So you can handle that really, really heavy, dramatic film.
But this is and
I kind of like it. I don't know. Do you like the idea of Bruce Wayne losing his fortune after his parents are killed and actually becoming a vigilante like Travis Bickle?
I don't know. But I think Joaquin Phoenix would have been he was younger back then. He would have been a good. Everyone knows how great.
He's a very, very different Bruce Wayne.
But everyone knows how world class an actor is, and they wanted the guy that played Fred in the Scooby-Doo movies. It's just ridiculous, mate. I just don't get it.
Because it's almost like they're running back to their kind of Val Kilmer, George Clooney sort of Batman.
Yeah.
Clean cut,
Nowadays, I feel like Batman is chosen on the actor's acting ability.
Yeah.
Of course, you've got to have a certain look, but you've got to be a really good actor to do it. Where they were just going for who, in their eyes, fit the image of Batman. It was just... Yeah, mate.
Early 2000s. Was Freddie Prinze Jr. actually big in the early 2000s?
Yeah, he was. He he'd done...
Apart from Scooby-Doo?
He'd done We Were Soldiers, he'd done Scooby-Doo. He'd been in quite a few other movies. He was really big for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. It's just one of those that's so terrible, isn't they? That's all I have to say, really.
Oh, right, yeah. Batman v Superman. Well, like some 14 to 15 years before we got the Batman v Superman, there was a similar crossover titled Batman v Superman in the works as part of the then Warner Brothers head Alan Horn's efforts to revive the Batman and Superman movies at the same time. He came with this idea, what he said, 10 poles. So he had this idea of 5 10 poles, which would be 5 properties that would be core, that would hold up Warner Brothers basically. One of them would be Batman and Superman.
Yeah.
So I guess his idea would be like with Marvel, is to produce one film or maybe 2 films a year.
Yeah.
With Batman in and Superman or something like that. And that kind of never happened, really, did it?
No.
The project started with a pitch from writer Andrew Kevin Walker, but was later revised by Batman Forever and Batman and Robin writer Akira Goldsman. In an interview in May 2020, Goldsman revealed the film had Colin Farrell and Jude Law lined up to play Batman and Superman, with Wolfgang Peterson directing.
Oh my God, mate!
I mean, Wolfgang Peterson is more known for his action films.
Yeah, big blockbusters,
maybe he's not much of a character study.
No.
Kind of.
I don't think he I just don't know. I don't think he has the detailed directing style you need to have as doing a Batman v Superman film.
Colin Farrell as Batman.
I cannot see it.
Although he's going to be Penguin, isn't he?
Yeah, but I can't see him as Batman.
Superman.
I cannot see this posh prick as Superman.
Yeah, but what about Henry Cavill?
Look at Henry Cavill compared to Jude Law.
Yeah, but he's English and he's quite posh as well.
But look at him.
Oh no, physically. I mean, but I mean, anybody can. I mean, I could play Superman. Give me 6 months, 6 years in the gym.
But no, Jude Law. He doesn't look like Clark Kent either, But
I think, like you say, I think they've, it's gone from Batman's gone from this kind of campy character to being really quite dark.
Because he is dark. He's a serious character. Yeah,
and you need somebody who can. Yeah, you got to have the action as well. And Superman's quite a complicated character
he is,
as well.
Yeah.
So I think you need actors who can pull that off. Really.
Don't get me wrong. Jude Law is a really good actor, but you need someone to also fit the part, and he just doesn't, in my opinion. But
well, they described it as the darkest thing you've ever seen, complete with going to kill off Alfred Man.
How dare they?
And Joker devising a cruel scheme to break Batman emotionally. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Batman v Superman was later abandoned so Warner Bros. Could keep the 2 superhero franchises separate and focus on making, respectively, a darker Batman reboot and lighter Superman movie, which would become Batman Begins and Superman Returns, respectively. So, you can't kill off Alfred, man. Come on.
There'll be riots across the world.
But yeah, it's I don't know, because I think Batman v Superman was described, if that ever happened, that was kind of the nail in the coffin. That was the last ditch attempt to revive a faltering property.
And if that would have happened, we would never have got the Dark Knight trilogy. No. Superman Returns, which we both like.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, Superman Returns is essentially the 5th instalment of the original Superman films starring Christopher Reeve. And obviously, Warner Brothers dicked about so much that it took, I think it's like 16 years for that film to be made.
Yeah.
And because it only made $400 million or something, they deemed it a failure, because they were going to plan on making another.
Even though the previous year Batman Begins made about $350 million. I just don't get it. It's just, And I think Brandon Routh was a brilliant Superman,
But like I say, they hesitated on greenlighting another film, which would have been Man of Steel. The option on Brandon Routh ran out. I think, as happens, people leave projects and go and work on other things. And then obviously Snyder came along and rebooted the whole franchise as Man of Steel.
No, I do like Man of Steel.
So, yeah, I mean, it's
much more of a character study. It's much more character based, isn't it? But, yeah, that's just my little.
Yeah, and it ignores some of the obviously in Man of Steel, this whole idea of Superman's identity being hidden from Lois Lane.
Yeah.
Which I think Snyder said that, quite. I mean, it's practically You can't see Superman being able to hide his identity behind a pair of glasses and just the way he does his hair. But that's part of the fun, isn't it? That people don't know it's him when obviously it is.
Obviously, like I'm not I'm not a super fan of Superman as you are, so it wasn't a problem. But we're getting into Superman, aren't we?
No, that's all right.
I know you can talk about Superman for ages.
Justice League Mortal. So a Batman and Superman crossover wasn't the only thing that Warner Brothers considered then abandoning in the 2000s before revisiting the concept in the DCEU. Mad Max director George Miller was on the cusp of beginning production on his Justice League movie titled Justice League Mortal in the summer of 2008, when the studio pulled the plug on the whole thing on the heels of The Dark Knight's massive critical and commercial success. Armie Hammer was attached to play Batman in the film, and they described his version of the character as being severely psychologically almost deranged and closer to Bale's iteration of Batman than anyone else's. The actors also said he's actually happy Justice League Mortal didn't happen, as he feels they wouldn't have turned in a great performance or even a good performance. It would have been just whatever, coming at such an early point in his acting career.
And that's the thing, I think Armie Hammer was a really good actor, but it was just, too early. And you can't really, this is the thing, I don't get it, you can't release a Justice League movie in 2008. One, with that, while the Dark Knight trilogy was its second movie came out, and two...
Well, it's odd to release a Justice League movie in the middle of a run of a Batman film and have a different Batman.
It just doesn't make sense.
Even though
I do think Armie Hammer's a really good actor and he looks the part, but I agree with him. I'm glad it was shelved, really.
I mean, the idea of continuity, like with the MCU, you want every character to be played by the same actor in all the individual films and the crossovers and everything. But I don't know, Warner Brothers in it.
that's you can put it down to, isn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, the idea of a Justice League is good. I like the idea of.
I actually want another Justice League.
And actually, like I said, I much prefer DC over Marvel.
Yeah, same here.
I'm not. I just like the darker characters. That's what I like, and I just like the way that
they feel much more real, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. So our last one is Ben Affleck's The Batman. So we know that initially Warner Brothers planned to follow Batman v Superman and Justice League with a solo DCEU vehicle for Ben Affleck's iteration of the Caped Crusader, simply titled The Batman. The film reportedly would have been a mystery and psychological thriller in the vein of David Fincher's The Game, with Affleck reprising his role as Bruce Wayne in addition to co-writing the script and directing. So he's doing a bit of everything.
Yeah.
Like the theme tune, sing the theme tune.
I wish I didn't have ears. Otherwise.
And basically what happened is that it's been in the news quite recently that he says that he had such unhappy time making Justice League.
Yeah, as you would.
But he said, it probably wouldn't have. It could have been any film. He said because he was going through some personal issues at the time. He was going through a divorce. I think he said he was sort of became dependent on alcohol, and so he felt that taking on directing and writing and acting duties on a Batman film was a little bit too much. He said, maybe a few years ago, maybe when he was in his 30s, he just didn't have the passion for it anymore. No. And he decided to check himself into rehab before the film. So that led obviously to Matt Reeves being brought in to write and direct, and Robert Pattinson taking over the role, playing a less experienced 30-something Batman,
which we both can't wait for.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know where it's going to fit in with the actual chronology of the the films.
Well, it's its own thing because it's not a DCU film.
Yeah, but if Affleck had carried on playing Batman, that would have been probably the Batman from the Justice League.
It would have been, It would have been in the DCU.
So they've obviously had to come up with an idea of a standalone film or the start of a new series.
It's got nothing to do with DCU, yeah.
But then Ben Affleck's coming back in The Flash.
Yeah, so that's a DCU movie, but the Batman is
with Michael Keaton as Batman.
Yeah.
Which is kind of odd how they're going to do that. Because what I read is like Michael Keaton's Batman, Batman is essentially the head of kind of the Justice League. And they were going to sort of have him more of a Nick Fury character from MCU. So rather than actually go out on missions and things, he would be more of sort of management.
I think it's the right move to make,
I just don't know how Keaton and Affleck are going to be Batman in the same film. Unless it's alternate timelines and other things.
I think it's something to do with the multiverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, because DC likes to explore that a lot.
Yeah.
So this is the thing, with comic book movies, you just got to kind of say, okay, it's fiction, and they can do what they want to say. It's multiverse, I think, is the only way they can do it, or, but...
Yeah, so the Batman is going to be released, I think it's March, isn't it, this year? We're
March 4th, really, 2022.
Really looking forward to it. Some of the familiar characters are going to reappear. We've actually got Zoe Kravitz.
Who is Lenny Kravitz's daughter.
Yeah, and she's going to be playing Selena Kyle, a.k.a. Catwoman. We've also got Paul Dano as Edward Nashton, or the Riddler.
I really like him.
Yeah, Jeffrey Wright as James Gordon. John Turturro as Carmine Falcone, which, I don't know, a bit odd. He's more of a comedy actor.
Yeah.
But,
I trust Matt Reeves, though.
Peter Sarsgaard as Gil Coulson, who's Gotham's district attorney. And Andy Serkis as Alfred Pennyworth.
What a legend, man.
So, bit of a younger Alfred than... Although Alfred in Jeremy Irons' version of Alfred was very different to Michael Caine's. Very, very different to Michael Gough's. So Jeremy Irons kind of ditched the tails and went from more. He looked like a mercenary, didn't he?
Yeah, and he goes more. He's more involved, isn't he?
Yeah.
And then obviously you got as Oswald Cobblepot,
the Penguin.
The Penguin, yeah.
So interesting casting, I think.
No, I think it's slightly left field, but I'm just really looking forward to Robert Pattinson as Batman. I think he'd be brilliant.
Yeah, I hope so.
I mean, he looks the part, but he also is a brilliant actor. So and hope this is finally his time to distance himself from the Twilight movies. You know what I mean? Yeah. And show people what a brilliant actor he actually is. Yeah,
because I guess that's kind of he's kind of, when you say Robert Pattinson, you think of Twilight, like kind of tweeny kind of thing. Yeah. So hope so. I'm
buzzing for it.
Yeah,
we're ready to book them when they come out with VIP, mate. I think.
Yeah, definitely. Right, so that's the films that never happened, or went through. But I mean, you can see like there's some elements of stories that got
100%,
because obviously they're based on the same source material, so they're obviously going to have some.
Scripts get rewritten as well, you know.
Yeah. So it's time now for rankings.
We're going to rank the movies and we're going to rank our Batman.
Rank the films, and then Batman.
Okay.
Right. So
we could say what's the last place for you?
Last place. I think Batman and Robin.
Oh, but, mine's Batman and Robin as well.
Next, I think Batman.
1989. Yeah, but I'm gonna say the same. Yeah,
I actually liked Batman Returns better.
Please don't
and
kill us.
So my next one will be Batman Returns, maybe.
Mine is Batman Returns,
and then Batman Forever.
Mine is Batman Forever. Yeah,
I really quite liked Val Kilmer's Batman.
Val Kilmer's a brilliant Batman, and also Tommy Lee Jones is just brilliant as Harvey Dent.
And then probably I would say Batman v Superman.
Mine's Batman v Superman. Yeah.
Batman. Dark Knight Rises.
Yep, mine is as well.
Batman Begins.
Yep.
And
Dark Knight.
Dark Knight.
So we have the same ranking.
Yeah.
I think it's...
When I first saw the Dark Knight trilogy, I thought Batman Begins was better because I like, obviously, an origin story. But then when we rewatched it for this, I actually thought, Dark Knight is a lot better. And I think Heath Ledger just kind of tips it over that, a brilliant performance as the Joker.
So unexpected as well. Just came out of nowhere. Yeah,
and I think, I was reading this morning that Christopher Nolan was hoping to use unused footage from Dark Knight to introduce Joker into Dark Knight Rises, but obviously
he said no. Respect for their family, wasn't it?
For the family and for Ledger himself, and I think that's why Joker hasn't been introduced in other Batman films as well. So, okay, is that going to inform your Batman?
Do we need to go first to the Batman now? Okay, last is going to be George Clooney.
Yeah.
This thing, he's a good actor, but he's just not a good Batman, and he was in the worst Batman movie.
Yeah, and you can kind of say, is that down to him or is it down to the script?
I don't think it was him. I don't think it was him. I don't think it was him at all.
Yeah.
I think it was the script he had to deal with. I think it was the movie he had to deal with, and the fact it was the wrong casting.
Well, I think it just come from he was actually still in the hour at the time.
Yeah.
So he was kind of this.
He was like the biggest guy on TV, wasn't he?
And maybe he's just trying to find his niche in films.
Yeah.
Because he's much more of that Cary Grant kind of, Danny Ocean kind of character, more suited for maybe the more comedy style.
Not a twisted character like Bruce Wayne.
No.
But this thing, fair enough to him, you're not going to turn down a chance to play Batman, are you?
No.
So, like I said, it wasn't his fault. Like I said, I think he's a really good actor, just not in this, not what he had to deal with, the script, the story, etc. So, what's yours?
Clearly, definitely.
Hi, I'm going to get some heat for this, I think. My next is Michael Keaton for me.
Me too.
I think he's overrated. I do.
When Batman first came out, I guess there'd been a vacuum because we'd not had a Batman film since Adam West, and compared to Adam West's Batman, he was a lot darker. But I still think, Michael Keaton is, although he has appeared in more dramatic roles later in his career, I think he still had that baggage of being
100%. Comedic actor, wasn't it?
And the fact that Batman film, he said that the Batman films are all about Bruce Wayne, not Batman,
which is just totally.
I couldn't get it, but it is about Bruce. But
it's got to be about Batman. It's a Batman movie, isn't it? It's just
definitely.
And this is the thing. Do I think he was terrible? No. Do I think people are blinded by nostalgia? Yeah. Yes. And I understand those people who grew up with those movies. That's their Batman. Like Christian Bale was my Batman. But I think his movies, Bruce Wayne is meant to be the main guy, and he was like a second fiddle in his own movie.
Yeah.
He just didn't do anything in the whole movie, did he? There was barely any Batman either, and I just think you could have put any actor at the time to play the role, and they'd play it the same or better. Yeah. So I think people are a bit blinded by nostalgia, but
I would then say Val Kilmer. I think.
Yeah, I would say Val Kilmer as well.
Wasn't a bad Batman again. Maybe it was the.
This is the thing. He'd done a really good performance and not so good film. So there you go.
Yeah. And I think they carried him on into Batman and Robin, maybe, and allowed Schumacher, to make it the way he wanted to. Maybe it would have been a little bit of a better film.
Well, everyone knows that Val Kilmer's a brilliant actor. He'd done stuff before, he'd done stuff after. It's not like Batman was his proper peak. I thought he was a really good Bruce Wayne, but a really good Batman as well, and that's what makes a really good Batman, doesn't it?
Next one, I think, is Ben Affleck.
Yeah, I do. And this is the thing. When I was like everyone, when I first heard he was cast, I was like, oh, for God's sake! They panicked. They went for an A-lister, and I tell you what, he's not the same as he was in the early 2000s. The Armageddon days or the
I didn't like him
Pearl Harbor days.
But then I think the more I've seen of him, and like you say, as he's matured and got older, I think he's a much better actor.
Well, he kind of went out of the limelight for about 10 years, didn't he? Yeah. And he's come back for this revival.
Well, he made a few really shit films.
Yeah, he did.
Pearl Harbor, Giggly.
Yeah.
But then he's made some really good films. But I think the fact he's an aging Batman as well, and that's something that really you don't see a lot of in films. Usually when an actor gets too old to play the part, they replace him with a younger actor. That's why I've always liked the film Logan, although I've not been a big fan of the X-Men films. I like the film Logan because it deals with
the chivalrous character, you know. That's the thing with Batman's Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne. His character's so multi-layered, and you can tell that he's just been there for 20 years. He's
jaded,
done that.
He's tired.
And he has sort of like this pissed sort of I don't know, just that resting face. You know, you can tell he's been through some shit and he's done it before. And I just think his Batman is the most darkest, as in terms of fighting. Like, you know, he's had enough of this shit now. He breaks people's arms and stuff.
Because the idea, was that Batman would be a symbol of hope for people, and once they didn't need him, then Batman could disappear. But obviously, that didn't happen.
He's been at it for 20 years. Yeah, and he fits the part as well. You know, he's 6'4", he's built as hell. He's got the grey hair starting to show, and it's like you said, it's refreshing to see Batman at that stage of his career. You know, but I think he's a brilliant Batman, and it's just a shame that the Batman on both of our first lists came before, because Ben Affleck's Batman is brilliant, I think, and he encompasses the character really well. But I mean, the first I think it's going to be on most people's lists is Christian Bale, isn't it? Yeah. I just think first off, I think everyone knows he's a world class actor, and the role of Batman is no different. He plays the role the best I've ever seen Bruce Wayne been played. I think both his Batman and Bruce Wayne, how he plays the character is just the best for both. Bruce Wayne, you believe he's a bit like a Tony Stark. He's a playboy, isn't he? He's a billionaire playboy, and you can see that, and he plays that well, doesn't he? But then when he's fighting crime, he's serious and he encompasses that darkness, that grittiness you got to have, and so he can do it both ways.
Yeah, I mean, he's famously known for his commitment to roles and his deep method acting.
I appreciate that, though.
I think probably the last couple of years now, I've gained a greater appreciation of Christian Bale, because I'd never really seen a lot of the films that he'd been in. Yeah, and so over the last year or so, I've only recently watched American Psycho, and quite a few other films that he's been in, and appreciate how. I mean, I watched Vice recently as well, which he went through again. Weight gain for that. Yeah, he lost a lot of weight for Machinist, but he seems to start to inhabit that character when he's playing the character.
I mean, like you said, it was Machinist. That was only a year before Batman Begins, so he had to put all that muscle weight on, and he actually went overweight by about
30 pounds.
Yeah, something like that. But it just is like you said, his dedication to the role. You just got to tip your hat off to him, and as well as looking the part, he's a world class actor. Everyone knows that. Probably he's definitely in the top 5 living actors today, I'd say. And just so many things. Of course, as well, it helps being in the movies he was in, but everything just seemed to fall right. It was written in the stars, and I think.
Well, the fact he started off as a child actor, and not all child
actors.
The
Sun, wasn't it? Yeah,
not all child actors can make that transition, but he managed to. That's my top. Although, if it was to be made, it'd have to be Batman versus Godzilla.
Jesus Christ. That says more about your personality than that.
Right, well, that's another episode out of the way. Finally got through the Batman special. We can do something different next week.
Yeah. I don't think we've decided that we will.
But hopefully you'll tune in next week to see what we've come up with. All that's left for me to say is thank you for joining us, and hope to see you next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.